US President Donald Trump would be welcomed by both Liberal and Labour if he decides to visit Australia during a tour around the APEC meeting in Papua New Guinea in November. Mr. Trump, along with other world leaders, is expected to make stops in Australia as part of a tour that will take him to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Leaders Summit. Everyone experiences intermittent stress in life. Professional and personal demands, illnesses and trauma can wreak havoc on your mental health. Sometimes that stress can trigger your body to react in ways that can be frustrating and embarrassing. These include issues like brittle nails, acne breakouts and hair loss. As a result, the hair begins to shed, causing the appearance of thinning. The theory is that it saves time in the busy midweek, when the idea of cooking from scratch feels draining. It also saves money by encouraging home cooking and reduces food and packaging waste. It is favored by those who wish to control portion size and calorie consumption and those following, say, a high-protein diet. In short, it is beloved by fitness fanatics, of course, wellness bloggers. Microsoft argued in court that the domains were posing as some of its company's services. Hackers could have used the domains to send emails to Senate staffers or people working for the Hudson Institute or the International Republican Institute in an attempt to trick them into handing over information, like their passwords. Project Aquila, first announced in 2014, failed to achieve the long flight times managed by airborne connectivity efforts from rivals including Google. On Tuesday, the company said it would instead partner with firms such as Airbus to continue its efforts to connect more people to the Internet. The decision means the closure of a facility in Bridgewater, UK. Graze's Anthony Fletcher says that his company sat down and formulated a plan whereby they would study their US online sales data to quickly work out exactly which of its snack food packs Americans wanted to buy, and which ones could be adapted to better meet US tastes. So, launching in the US with its entire range of products. Scientists have studied how the skin creates its own natural plaster to help heal these injuries. Oil-based substances, such as petroleum jelly, appear to disrupt this important process, and might increase the risk of wound infection, they say in the Journal of Clinical Investigation. But new research suggests immediately slathering an open wound with this ointment might be a bad idea. Consumer goods giant Unilever has taken a stand against influencer marketers who exaggerate their social media clout to earn more money promoting products. We've all heard about vloggers and bloggers earning big bucks promoting brands' products on their social media pages. Some of these millennial influencers with 1 million or more followers can earn $20,000 per post, says social insights firm Captive 8. These stories are invaluable for all Australians in exploring the history and misdeeds of early colonisation. The ABC has worked in collaboration with leading educational and cultural institutions from across the country to create compelling and contemporary resources for Australian schools, revealing the stories of our past in an engaging way for present and future students and teachers. Astronomers figured out how to measure the distance to features called spiral nebulae. Although these looked like clouds of gas nearby to us, the scientists realized they were whole galaxies containing billions of stars, really far away. Pretty much as soon as we understood what galaxies were, we discovered that they are all moving away from each other. Superannuation industry has been under scrutiny, with the Financial Services Royal Commission examining the fees charged, the use of member funds and an apparent conflict of interests between member interests and those of retail fund shareholders. In the June 2018 quarter, total superannuation assets grew 3.6%. Public sector superannuation schemes assets 2.6% and balance of life office statutory fund assets were down 0.9%. When young people began going to prom in the late 19th century, it wasn't yet a dance for high schoolers. Prom, short for promenade, was originally an event for college students in the Northeast that had its roots in debutante balls. Also known as coming-out parties, debutante balls introduced young women to polite society and its eligible men. The funding is for 2 years and will meet the costs of a graduate research assistant. This is the first study investigating the possible occurrence of genetic variants of vanilla through these types of regeneration protocols. Findings from the study will provide useful guidance on the suitability of tissue culture protocols for long-term use, for vanilla regeneration without risk of genetic instability. Today Mr. Wilson still lives in the States, and runs a business called Green Seed Group that helps and advises UK and other foreign food firms that wish to launch in the US. The first thing that any food business that wants to break into America needs to do is research. You have to move to the US and absorb its food culture, he says. With that second decision, the court ruled that the university had discriminated against 2 white applicants by automatically giving non-white applicants 20 points on a 150-point admission scale. The most recent Supreme Court ruling on this subject was 2016's Fisher v. University of Texas, in which the court ruled that the university's consideration of race had not resulted in discrimination against a rejected white applicant. After several years of speculation, the e-commerce giant launched in Australia just in time for the November 2017 cyber sales. While it offered limited stock to limited customers from its Melbourne fulfillment centre and had just acquired a Sydney location, if the launch was soft, Amazon's aspirations aren't. It has already fine-tuned the logistics smarts and ultra-low margin operations. Fruit and vegetables should be an important part of your daily diet. They are naturally good and contain vitamins and minerals that can help to keep you healthy. They can also help protect against some diseases. Most Australians will benefit from eating more fruit and vegetables as part of a well-balanced, regular diet and a healthy, active lifestyle. The company, which runs 46 daily newspapers across 21 states, originally said its sites were temporarily unavailable, but browsers in the EU are now greeted with a message informing them that access is unavailable due to legal reasons. There are 6 legal bases for using personal data, including getting express consent from consumers. In a further sign of disenchantment, it seems marketers are now ditching influencers from their marketing strategies. The firm, which has 10,000 influencers on its books, found that not a single one of the 10,000 British marketers it surveyed planned to focus on influencers over the next 12 months. The influencer work provides a handy secondary income. Sometimes a greater than expected number of cases of a disease occur in a group of people living or working in the same area. This is called a disease cluster. Communicable diseases, which are diseases that can be spread from one person to another, often occur in clusters. Examples include colds, flu, whooping cough, chlamydia and HIV. Information is universal energy, affecting change, creating and disrupting order. Information in the form of proprietary databases can be monopolistic. It's information that is forcing us to question the true nature of the decision process and the perception of reality. The old information transfer systems were very inefficient. We hear at 300 words a minute but speak at 150 words a minute. No universal classification system for technology has yet been devised. Technology is most often classified according to the area of production involved, for example, industrial technology, transportation technology, and agricultural technology, or according to particular structural subdivisions of industry, for example, aircraft technology and the technology of land reclamation. The performance of these different assets can vary significantly, sometimes inversely, over time, with the theory being that those with a greater level of risk should generally perform better over the long term, compared to those investments with a lower level of risk. We look at the different asset classes and assess their long-term performance. It is one of a catalogue of 32 breaches Australia's 4 largest banks disclosed to the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, OAIC, between January 2012 and April 2018 that were obtained by 7.30 under Freedom of Information laws. Westpac reported 18 privacy breaches to the Privacy Watchdog, NAB reported 9, the Commonwealth Bank reported 3 and ANZ reported 2. Almost all new jobs will require post-school qualifications. About half of all new jobs will require a vocational qualification, while about half will require a university qualification. This poses challenges to the education system, to governments and to society. Low wages in job growth areas, such as childcare, are contributing to high levels of workforce churn. Rolling all the debts into the housing loan would certainly pay them off quicker provided the family were disciplined enough to increase the payments on the housing loan to dramatically speed up the loan term. The problem is that most people end up in financial strife because of bad money management. When overseas tourists think of the harbour city, their thoughts no doubt turn to the usual suspects, the Opera House and the bridge. But savvy locals know Sydney has more unique landmarks than these two, sites that evoke childhood memories, make us feel secure in their familiarity, and remind us why we love this crazy city, despite the appalling public transport. Looking through a wider scope, late last year UBS economists calculated Australia's property price gained 6,556% in 55 years, setting a world record for the longest continuous upswing. Growth averaged 8.1% year-on-year in the 55 years to 2016, the economists said while correctly calling the top of the market in October 2017. William Shakespeare was born in Stratford-upon-Avon, a bustling market town 100 miles northwest of London, and baptized there on April 26, 1564. His birthday is traditionally celebrated on April 23, which was the date of his death in 1616 and is the feast day of St. George, the patron saint of England. Shakespeare's father, John, dabbled in farming, wood trading, tanning, leatherwork, money lending and other occupations. When the asbestos fibers become airborne, people working with asbestos may inhale particles. These particles remain in the lungs and, over time, can cause disease. A person's chance of developing asbestos-related disease depends on how much asbestos they were exposed to and for how long. The use of asbestos was probably at its highest in the mid to late 1970s. Hurricane Florence made landfall in North Carolina on Friday, battering the state with a powerful combination of wind and rain. Officials reported damage to buildings across some coastal parts of the state, while many in the New Bern area required rescue in the early hours of the day. Neutrinos are among the most plentiful particles in the universe, far outnumbering the protons and electrons out of which we are composed. They have no electrical charge and so little mass that it has not been accurately measured yet. They interact with other matter only by gravity and the so-called weak nuclear force and thus flow through us, Earth and even miles of lead like ghosts. This is an emerging area of research with some exciting findings. By comparing the gut bacteria of slim and overweight people, researchers are learning which bacteria can better support weight management and how you can get more of them. Interestingly, food choices may be able to change the balance of your gut microbiome to increase the bacteria associated with being slim and decrease the bacteria associated with being overweight. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull has staged another dramatic retreat on energy policy in the face of a dire threat to his leadership, removing climate change targets from the National Energy Guarantee in his second policy reset in 4 days. The revised scheme will go ahead without federal legislation to stipulate a 26% cut to greenhouse gas emissions under changes. Stress is a natural human response to pressure when faced with challenging, and sometimes dangerous situations. A stress-free life, however, is not the goal. Stress is helpful when it increases our ability to be alert, energized, switched on and resourceful in managing daily tasks. Stress becomes detrimental when it leaves us feeling fatigued, tense, anxious, burnt out or overwhelmed. Flexibility in the workplace helps employees balance the changing demands of professional and personal life. Some employees prefer structure and routine, and others work best when they have options to balance competing work and life responsibilities. Queensland Government employees have access to many flexible work possibilities, which related to the hours you work, places you work and work arrangements you use. Following this year's FIFA World Cup in Russia, Coca-Cola Hellenic Bottling Company, CCH, a major bottling partner for the global drinks brand, reported a 6.4% jump in revenues for the first half of 2018. The football competition, warm weather and new product launches helped boost sales, the company said, but new technology also helped, in the form of sophisticated image recognition and data analytics. Across the Atlantic Ocean, colonial Baroque works created by artists in early 17th century Mexico, New Spain, were full of this beautiful blue. How could this be? Lapis was even rarer in the New World. It wasn't until the middle of the 20th century that archaeologists discovered the Maya had invented a resilient and brilliant blue. Centuries before their land was colonized and their resources exploited. From the earliest days of the Bedouin poets to the urban battlefields of modern wars, the trope of the ruin wanderer has evolved and expanded. In the generations of violence that have devastated the urban environments of places like Iraq, the trope has become relevant again, and a new generation of artists has found a new way to make the ruins of the past speak. It is an impulse that is still fundamental to who we are. Yet our own modern lives are frazzled and fragmented to an unprecedented degree. Who, seriously, has the luxury of making time each day to actively listen to a particular piece of music? Perhaps, though, we have never needed more urgently the emotional space that music, and classical music in particular, can provide. These strong links to tradition don't stop the city from being extremely welcoming to other cultures. As home to many European and Asian expats, the city has an international feel that makes it easy for newcomers to fit in. More than half of residents also speak English, reducing communication barriers and making it easier for many to make new friends. Checking a navigation mobile app to quickly establish how to get from point A to point B has become second nature to us. Measured in megabytes, the world now fits in our pockets. It is quite astonishing, then, to see firsthand that only a few centuries ago geographical knowledge was yet to be fully charted, and how religious beliefs. Mandarin Chinese is one of the most complex languages in the world. Opening a Chinese dictionary, you find around 370,000 words. That's more than double the number of words in the Oxford English Dictionary, and almost 3 times those in French and Russian dictionaries. But these many words have been joined in recent years by a bunch of upstarts. People lie on their CVs for the same reason they lie about their language skills on something as banal as Facebook. They want to impress people. The problem is, if you're deceptive about your qualifications on an application, no matter how trivial you think it is, it leaves a really bad indelible impression on potential employers. Schweitzer says some even lie in the interests section of their CV. Earlier this year, a paper reported that California appears to be accurately cataloging its fossil fuel carbon dioxide, CO2, emissions. To check, co-author Heather Graven of Imperial College, London and her team used accelerator mass spectrometry to measure the ratio of different kinds of carbon in atmospheric CO2. Carbon-14 is a new, slightly radioactive carbon that is produced naturally in the atmosphere. The ancient Chinese capital of Xi'an. Today, its beautiful historic towers are overwhelmed by nondescript modern buildings. But just outside Xi'an lies one of the great cultural wonders of the world, a wonder that has lain hidden for 2 millennia. This formidable army of terracotta warriors was discovered by chance in 1974. It was one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries ever made. Study guide breaks up the information that might be covered on the test and then lists out the most important facts and ideas. These are usually used for preparing for tests, but they can also be used for keeping up with regular subjects as well. Make one for yourself each time you finish a unit. The new data comes from Tohoku University, Japan, and has been published in Nature. Noguchi proposes that stars were formed in 2 different epochs under 2 different sets of circumstances. While 2-stage galaxies have been suggested for galaxies larger than ours, Noguchi has been able to confirm that a process known as cold flow accretion. GBM is typically diagnosed through brain imagery and then surgery. If a patient experiences symptoms of a brain tumor, it's necessary to see a physician to get the ball rolling on diagnosis through imaging. Treatment includes removing as much as possible, and then beginning radiation and chemotherapy. As of right now, there is no definitive cure for this type of tumor. Between the invention of the printing press in c. 1440, and the age of exploration reaching one of its pinnacles in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, a revolution took place in the art of mapping and describing the world. First-hand knowledge gained through seafaring, commerce, geographical discoveries, complex mathematical calculation.